All right, Mario. So let's talk some receivers. So as I mentioned in that ad read, done. I've picked up on my best ball drafting over this last week. We got about a month until the draft. I want to stockpile some shares before things really start moving around. And we're also a little bit past that initial wave of free agency, and I thought that receiver has been a relatively consistent source of frustration for me in these drafts because running back obviously stocked in the first two rounds. I mean, everything is stocked in the first two rounds, but the relative drop offs at both positions once you get into the third round is really interesting to me. So I guess I want to lead things off for you. Say you're picking outside of the top five, somewhere between 5 and 10. Who would your preferred receiver options be between, say, the likes of like Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, and Tyreek Hill?
Well, I've taken Cooper Kupp ahead of all of them, but that was mostly just because of where the draft slot was. It was kind of like if I wanted to get a Cooper Kupp share, I had it made as much sense then as ever because he was unlikely to be available later anyway. Whereas I have Tyreek Hill ranked about the same as Cooper Kupp, but I because you can get him a pick or two later, I usually try to specifically get him a pick or two later rather than the few. I'm not loaded with Cooper Kupp teams, so it's like occasional exposure. I want to get there, but I have him ranked with about the same as Tyreek Hill. Obviously, Stafford very much a required condition for
Sure.
Cooper Kupp to be ranked that high, but we just saw it in 2021. Stafford, Kupp, McVay is really all they need to put up, almost 1,800, 1,900 yards. So I'm higher on Kupp than most people, but I'm also really high on Tyreek Hill, and I think he doesn't really need Tua to be back to be worth it. Like ideally, Tua would be there, and I more or less expect that. But even if they go to some backup, or even if I don't know the off chance like Tua is unavailable and they sign Tom Brady or something, I think McDaniel and Tyreek Hill are the part that made that go. Not really so much Tua, but it's after that I would probably. Or I'm sorry, I'd have Diggs also ranked about the same as those guys actually, but again, I kind of take him later than I do Kupp and Hill just because I can. Sometimes Diggs falls just too far, just like last year. Nothing different than last year. Same thing's happening. Diggs falls too far. Like if you believe Josh Allen is going to be the quarterback for the Bills and the Bills are going to run the offense as they have the last 2 years, Stephon Diggs should almost never fall out of the first 7 picks, in my opinion. I don't think there's anything wrong with taking him as high as like 3 or 4, honestly.
Yeah, I don't either. I just for whatever reason, maybe like the way that last season ended, kind of left a sour taste in my mouth when it comes to Diggs. But certainly want to stockpile some shares, late first round shares in particular. But once you get past the second round, I think that there's kind of an interesting tier drop off where once DK Metcalf comes off the board, which is usually early to mid third, then you're kind of reached this weird dead zone, or it's not a dead zone. These are good players, but a little bit less of slam dunks, in my opinion. So you have Deebo Samuel, Amari Cooper, DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, Mike Williams. Which of those guys are you going after, if any, or is this a tier that like you're just hoping to skip over and already have like your first 1 or 2 receivers already locked up?
Actually, I often pick receiver when these guys are going off the board. I'm pretty much out on Deebo. I think he's awesome, but I just don't think the 49ers are going to throw enough, and his durability concerns are substantial enough that I just can't really take him until probably something more like the 5th or something, which he never falls to. So in this range, pretty clearly to me, Calvin Ridley is the top target, and I don't even think you really need to project much growth for Trevor Lawrence for that to be the case. But if you do project growth for Trevor Lawrence, then I do, then I think Ridley's kind of going too late. As much as I understand why he's going as late as he is, I get it. The unknown, the generally unprecedented scenario as it is. But if Calvin Ridley is Calvin Ridley, then this is simple. Like I like Christian Kirk a lot too. I think they're both going to be really good this year. But Calvin Ridley's like a 1,400-yard player with Trevor Lawrence. So I'm going with Calvin Ridley there primarily. Also like Cooper more than Debo, in part because I am expecting Deshaun Watson to do quite a bit better this year. Hopkins is a little bit tougher. I also I don't really like to, but sometimes I take Mike Williams in this spot, like in situations where I'm like, oh, come on, I hope Ridley falls to me, and he doesn't. I maybe usually take Williams in that case, and it's more
Interesting.
like,
I know you never like taking Mike Williams.
well, he gets a lot of targets in the offense, and I still think Keenan Allen might get cut. So to me, Mike Williams is a very I don't want to say this about a guy who's had the injury history that he has, but he's per game projection wise, per snap projection wise, he's extremely high floor for that range, and it is often easy if you don't take a receiver. If you're not leaving this like 4th round spot with at least 2 receivers, it's pretty easy to wait till your next pick. And in some of these drafts, it's worse than others. But if you're in a draft where there's like 2 or 3 0 running back teams, you might see like 9 receivers go off the board before your next pick.
No, exactly. Like it's been again really tricky to navigate, and I feel like that's a clear tier that dries up at probably after Williams or DJ Moore. I'd say.
I have Kirk pretty close. I actually have Kirk ahead of DJ Moore just because I don't really know what to make of the Bears passing game. But yeah, it gets really like I really don't want to be in a position, as a lot of teams are, where I'm looking at like Christian Watson and Michael Pittman as my wide receiver 2 or something. At the very least, I'd much rather go with some players going later than them, but I also don't want to be in that market in the first place.
So I hate that part of the draft too. And it's, again, like I don't hate those players in a vacuum, but you don't feel great about them as your wide receiver 2. And so someone that I've collected a decent amount of exposure to as a result, I think Terry McLaurin's still one of the best receivers in the league, and he stands out to me as a clear value. And I understand that there's some consternation about the quarterback situation there in Washington, but we don't know what Sam Howell is going to be, and I guess Jacoby Brissett comes in as a bit of like a safety policy. Oh, suppose you might need to go sign for something.
Sorry. Hold on just a second. I'll be right back.
All right. I will continue my screed on one Terry McLaurin. But, as we saw last year, we knew going into the year when it came to Amari Cooper that Jacoby Brissett would be his starting quarterback. And it wasn't always sexy, but, Amari Cooper was able to get the job done. I envisioned something similar with McLaurin, where the talent kind of supersedes maybe a relative lack of quarterback talent, a relative lack of quality when it comes to the targets that he's getting, whether it is Sam Howell or Jacoby Brissett. But I will just kind of put a ringing endorsement on McLaurin, especially where he's going in drafts. I don't know how much of that you caught, Mario.
I caught a bunch of it. Sorry, I tried to mute the mic, but apparently I got to hit a different mute button now.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Anyway, I think Howell is actually the best case scenario for McLaurin because he's a chucker. And McLaurin, if he's just going deep, getting tons of air yards, that's fine. And I actually expect Howell to be the best fit possible, actually, among the first. I think it's safe to say among the quarterbacks McLaurin has had so far, Howell would actually be the best fit for him.
I'm pumped to hear that. I'm going to continue to get again. I don't expect the market to really change too much on McLaurin. I think that he's going to continue to be a value basically all the way until the preseason. They're obviously not going to change a whole lot through the draft, whether it's at quarterback or receiver, because they already have Dotson. So I feel like he's just, we're not going to hear anything that really gives helium. So I think that McLaurin's going to remain this really nice value where he's going.
I think some people might come to their senses about Pittman and Watson, Christian Watson and Michael Pittman and even Jerry Jeudy should not be going ahead of McLaurin. I mean, that's just silly. So I think that kind of stuff might catch up to reasoning, but the highest, the absolute highest McLaurin could be going, even if people do kind of catch up on stuff, would be 45 or something. So I don't have a ton of exposure just because I'm already, I guess, looking to a different position or something by the time I'm on I've already taken Kirk or whatever, Ridley. But I would like to get more McLaurin. I will say, though, if it's Brissett, that's bad news in my opinion. Not that Brissett's necessarily worse than Howell for real life purposes, but for fantasy, that's bad news for everybody.
Okay, that it could be bad. I don't know. I was just saying that Brissett still kept Cooper afloat. I know that
He
they're
did.
two
He's just
different-
not a deep ball guy, and it's like McLaurin's just so unbelievably good. Like, it's easy to forget because he's been on that stupid team this whole time, but McLaurin can do pretty much the same thing as anybody else. Like he's about as good as there is.
Yeah, I love Scary Terry. I loved what I saw from Dotson late last year. So I think
Yeah.
Washington actually is sneakily a decent cheap stack that you can target. Again, you get McLaurin, you get Dotson about 3 rounds later, and then you get Howell with your quarterback 3, and things might end up working out. As we round things out on this wide receiver discussion, Mario, who's one guy you've been getting in the 16th round or later consistently at the receiver position?
16th round. So I've been taking a lot of couple rookies in the 20th round. I take Xavier Hutchinson a bunch. I don't really have anything, tangible, substantive to give anybody on that one. I just think Hutchinson is really good, and I feel like people are going to eventually notice. And I think when you turn on the tape, it's clear he's quite good, but he doesn't have the draft capital in the meantime. He's not like a freaky athlete, so you can get him in the 20th. I've taken him a bunch. I think he's pretty low risk, high upside as far as the range goes. Tyler Scott, apparently he's not going to go any higher. I still feel like there's a bunch of like ADP adjustment to be made of people just kind of looking for the first time, or doing their own research for the first time, as opposed to just doing what somebody else told them to in the meantime. So Tyler Scott is someone who should start costing more because he's going to go in the 2nd or 3rd round, and clearly the current ADP doesn't recognize that. The current ADP thinks he's going to go in like the 5th. He's not. So he's someone that I take quite a bit. And otherwise, I think so. 16th round would be something
I think we've got it covered as far as
Deontay Hardy. I like quite a bit with Buffalo. I think he's actually like a pretty ideal best ball pick because he's so high depth of target, high yards after the catch.
Oh, I like that idea as well. And they obviously jettisoned McKenzie earlier.
Finally,
this week.
They listened to me personally.
They did, and they directly disobeyed me. I always like McKenzie because he went to Georgia, but I definitely
like him too. He's a wide receiver 4 or 5, not the wide receiver 3.
Yes, a little bit, a lot overexposed last year, but let's go. That's going to round it out